basically a superstar of being canna-friendly politicians, so I am very honored to introduce my friend Carlos Guillermo Smith.
Thank you for that awesome introduction. Look, we're all here for one reason, because we're tired of Rick Scott's war on medical cannabis patients. We are tired of it. As we speak, the governor of the state of Florida has declared war on a 77-year-old lung cancer survivor, Joe Redner. Joe Redner, whose lung cancer has been in remission because of the fact that he has been juicing whole flower cannabis per the recommendation of his physicians and his doctors, so that he can keep his lung cancer in remission. And after the Florida legislature passed their unconstitutional implementation law, Senate Bill 8A, that thwarted the will of the voters and said not only were you not allowed to smoke medical cannabis, but you couldn't have access to the whole flower plant that many patients need to be able to access the full entourage of benefits that come from the miracle of medical cannabis. Can I get a hell yeah?
Hell yeah!
So Joe Redner decided to sue the state of Florida so that he could continue to access some of the medical benefits that come from the whole flower plant. And what Rick Scott and his attorneys did in court was they appealed the first court decision that granted lung cancer survivor Joe Redner the constitutional right, that acknowledged his constitutional right to continue to juice cannabis at home. And what Rick Scott and his attorneys said is they said that Joe Redner could not make a scientific argument for why he needed to access whole flower cannabis. Think about that for a second. Governor Rick Scott said that the patients didn't have a scientific basis to have access to whole flower medical cannabis. The governor, who has openly said he's not a scientist, the governor that has essentially declared war on Florida patients. How about a little bit of science for you? I'm going to read you some statistics in case Rick Scott is listening right now.
Hit him with the science.
In 2015, 33,000 Americans died from opiate overdoses. 33,000 Americans dead in 1 year. In the state of Florida, in the same year, 3,200 Floridians died from opiate use. The following year, we saw a dramatic increase in the state of Florida alone. 5,700 Floridians died. An opiate-related death. During the same time frame, 0 Floridians died from overdosing from cannabis. 0 Floridians died from cannabis overdoses in 2015. 0 Americans died in the whole last calendar year from cannabis overdoses. And according to the CDC, in the history of recorded medicine, not a single human being has ever fatally overdosed from cannabis.
It's impossible.
What other statistics do we need, folks? Cannabis is an exit drug.
Absolutely.
We have haters out there who continue to say, no, cannabis is a gateway drug. We cannot allow full access to medical cannabis. We can't decriminalize. We can't allow adult use cannabis because they believe it is a gateway drug. There is no science that makes that connection. Doctors have said it is an exit drug. And what we have seen across the country is in areas where governments have made full access to medical cannabis available, that they have seen a 25% decrease in opiate deaths in their area.
Yes.
Do you all see the connection?
Yep.
71% of voters made access to medical cannabis a constitutional right in 2016. You made your voices heard, and you made your voices loud and clear. And yet politicians and Rick Scott decided that they would thwart the will of the voters. What business does government have to tell a qualified medical patient that they can't smoke their cannabis?
Exactly.
They have no business telling us whether or not we can smoke our medical weed. So we have a message for Rick Scott today. He needs to drop the lawsuits right now. He needs to end his war on a 77-year-old lung cancer survivor named Joe Redner, who simply wants to juice medical cannabis at home, which is his constitutional right, which is going to be cheaper than the processed products that are available through any number of medical marijuana treatment centers across the state of Florida. That's the reality, is that the state of Florida is telling you, as patients who are qualified for medical cannabis, and you want the filet mignon, which is whole flour, so that you can have access to the full entourage of benefits that come from medical weed.
Yes.
They're telling you you can't have the filet mignon.
Too much money
You
in
can
it.
have the hamburger, which comes in the form of vaping,
Garbage.
or CBD oil, or pills,
Garbage.
and they're going to charge you more for the hamburger.
Yes, they do. Filet mignon prices.
Rick Scott needs to end this war on patients. He needs to drop the suit. And this is not about politics. It's not about Republicans versus Democrats. I'll tell you, since I became vocal as a progressive Democrat myself, since I became vocal on the rights of medical cannabis, on the right to smoke medical pot, I've had so many libertarians, Republicans, no party affiliation voters who have begun to support this movement and my advocacy because of my stance on medical cannabis.
Yes.
It's not a partisan issue. It's an issue of right versus wrong. Rick Scott, get on the right side of history and free the flower, drop the lawsuits, and let the 71% of voters have what they voted for, which is access to whole flower medical cannabis.
All right. Thanks, Boo. All right.